Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church, and I'm happy to be with you here the last day of the week. The last day I'll be talking about Mark 4 and 5. Now, yesterday I talked about how the woman interrupted Jesus on the way to Jairus' house because his little girl was really sick. And I want to finish today the story of Jairus. Now, that was the day before yesterday, and we stopped where Jesus left to go to his house. So let's look at beginning with verse uh, 35, and we'll read through 42. While he was still speaking to the woman, the one who touched him, a messenger arrived from the house of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, and they told him, "Your daughter is dead. There's no use troubling the teacher now." But Jesus overheard them, and he said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just have faith." So they kept on going. And verse 40 says, when the crowd saw Jesus there, they laughed at him because he said she wasn't dead. But he made them all leave. And he took the girl's father and mother and his 3 disciples into the room where the girl was laying. Holding her hand, he said to her, "Little girl, get up." And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. And they were overwhelmed and totally amazed. Well, if I had been there, I would have been totally amazed too. You see, Jairus, who obviously was a religious man and obviously believed that Jesus could do healings and whatnot, otherwise he never would have talked to him in the first place. And so he heads down to the house. They get interrupted by this other woman. Jesus speaks to her and says, "Okay, let's get going again." And while they start to get going, people come from Jairus' house and tell him, "Don't bother. It's too late. She's dead. Just don't bother to teach her anymore." And Jesus heard that. Now, what's interesting here is the people who come to Jairus are not bad people. They're not being untruthful. The girl died. And they just don't want to bother making all the fuss in the trip. I don't know what Jairus thought. Maybe something like, "Lord, if you hadn't stopped to talk to this other lady, we could have gotten there before she died." And Jesus understands that Jairus is heartbroken. I mean, who wouldn't be? So he says to him, "Don't be afraid. Just have faith." You know, you and I are a lot like Jairus. We really are. We trust God. We believe in God. We've seen God work, but we don't want to bother him. We feel as if he's more important or someone else is more important than we are. And then when we find out that the situation is now hopeless, we thank God and want to move on. But Jesus has a better idea. You know what? I would suggest to you that Jesus always has a better idea than the pain and the suffering we're experiencing. Yep, I bet he does. As they say in Kentucky, where I lived, I bet the farm on it. So Jesus empowers Jairus to try to hang on until something happens. Now, he doesn't tell Jairus what's going to happen. He does when he gets to the house, tells all the people, warning to get out of the way. You're making a fool of yourself because she's not dead. Of course, they laugh at it because they know she's dead. This is not a question here. This is a fact. But Jesus knows more than the facts of the moment. You see, you and I only know what's happening in the moment. We don't know what's happening next next or really next. For that, Jesus says, don't be afraid, just have faith. That's what he said to Jairus. That's what he says to you and to me. Well, I know times can get really confusing and situations can get really horrible. But when we are able to trust the Lord, maybe there's another option we haven't seen. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not suggesting that anybody who's died, Jesus is going to resurrect from the dead. I grant you that that could happen. I haven't seen it, but I believe it could happen. I hear reports of it. But most of us aren't in that kind of a position. We're in something much less. Our lives are in turmoil. This has happened or that has happened. Or maybe our whole life has been in turmoil and we've never seen the hand of God at work. And to you and all of us, in those moments right now, when it appears it's all over, Jesus says, no, it's not all over. There's another story. And of course, he goes in, touches the little girl, tells her to get up, and she does. When we finally get to the position where we can see the end story of God, that's when we get utterly amazed. When I look back at my life and those moments when struggles were so hard, and I think about where I am now, I'm amazed at what God did. And if he did it then, he'll do it now and he'll do it later. If he did it for Jairus, if he did it for me, he'll do it for you. No questions asked, no doubt about it. We are all precious in God's eyes. So I hope you understand that. This is the end of the week. I've been talking about miracles. I hope you have some in your life. I hope you've had some. I hope you're anticipating more. And during this coming weekend, have a great one. No telling what God's going to do. There's no telling what God wants to do for you and for me. Thanks for listening. If you have a concern or a need, let us know. We'll do whatever we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. Until next time, I'll be back. God bless you. I'll talk to you again.